So Laura Wasser, divorce attorney to the stars, has been around for a while. She is starring in Reformation, which is a clothing brand for those of you playing the home game. Reformation, the new divorce collection featuring limited edition Dump Him sweatshirt.
Divorce, but let's make it fashion, right?
Hey everybody, what's happening? Welcome to another episode of the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast. We are coming at you live worldwide from our top secret Chicago studios. With me, as always, the indubitably Rahul Iyer. There's some big words for you.
Hey, I'll take it.
So anyway, expanding your vocabulary and your knowledge of divorce. Weekly, folks, we appear all over the audio and video channels, YouTube, Podbean, all the podcast platforms of your choice, and Apple Pods. Yeah, so we're everywhere. So you can find us anywhere. Episode 53, we've been at this for a while. So on this show, we talk about education and entertainment. So to kick off the entertainment part of this, we got something really interesting for you. This, by the way, our show is called the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast because we know a lot of you smart, successful people out there want to just get these divorces done. And you want to do it right. You want to do it smart and not spend a fortune doing it. So our goal is to help you with that. We are here to educate the smart, successful person navigate through divorce. Rahul and I work for STG Divorce Law in Chicago. Without any further ado, wanted to talk about this. The first thing is we're talking about divorce clothes, people, clothing and divorce. What do those things have to do with each other? You ask. So Laura Wasser, divorce attorney to the stars, has been around for a while. She is starring in Reformation, which is a clothing brand for those of you playing the home game. Reformation, new divorce collection featuring a limited edition. You're going to love this. We have the link in the show notes for you to check it out. But I'm looking at this thing right now. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Oh, let's see. Looks like I can. Let's share the screen. I don't know how this is going to work, folks. Okay. We're going to try this. So this is from Variety. We're checking this out today. Can you see this, Rahul?
Yeah. It's right there. That's awesome.
All right. So we're using some high tech here now.
Yeah.
We're throwing new tricks at you guys every day, but this story from Variety, the new divorce collection featuring limited edition Dump Him sweatshirt. So here's Laura, looks fabulous. She's in this dress. Looks great. Here's the story. Reformation is breaking up, and it's doing so with Hollywood's most famous divorce attorney on retainer, Nurek, okay. The sustainable fashion label, because, Rahul, what is fashion if it's not sustainable?
Yeah. Divorce, but let's make it fashion, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, and make it sustainable. We want to be environmentally conscious.
Well,
the high-profile attorney, Laura Wasser, has worked with Angelina Jolie Kardashian in two divorces. She's a frequent flyer. And Britney Spears is the face of the latest divorce collection. Shot by Zoe Grossman. Sorry, don't know who she is, but she must be somebody we're supposed to know. The campaign frames the partnership as the departure from the brand's recent boyfriend era, featuring a campaign with show friend Pete Davidson. Well, at least I imagine he would think we were cool, right? I don't know.
Right.
So apparently we go from boyfriend era we skip to the husband era, and we're in the get divorced era through. Mm-hmm. We're going full circle. I used to joke that Cosmopolitan magazine would, 1 month it says, you don't need a man. The next month, the headline is how to get a man. The next month, the headline is how to keep your man. The next month is dump your man. And then you're like pretty much through 12 months and you go back to, you don't need a man.
It's the cycle of life.
It's the circle of life, right?
Yeah.
And you got to keep, it's like when you sell Fit Pregnancy magazine, you only got about 9 months of material. You have to start over again at some point. So, okay. So what do we have here? We're like, all right, what's the story? We understand this is a quote from the brand. We understand this may come as a surprise, given we just announced last year we got a boyfriend. I guess the brand got a boyfriend. But things change. We're just ready to move on, get back out there, feel sexy again. All right. There's Laura looking fashionable, and I guess these are the brand outfits. Fabulous. And then this. Okay. Then there it is, the Dump Him sweatshirt, ladies and gentlemen. Rahul, what did you say about this one before the show? I thought that was well stated.
Oh my gosh. These are these punchlines are very, ad hoc, ad lib. So I'm trying to think about what I did say, in fact.
No, you said, well, you're like, this could only play in California.
Oh, yeah. I mean, such a California move, isn't it? I mean, this is not the fashion sense of the Midwest. I don't see people in Minnesota,
It might be somebody like...
I'm sure. But it's, where we are in Chicago, I mean, it's very much California vibes, right?
Yeah.
So
the proceeds, 100% of net proceeds will benefit a Center for Family Law, which provides legal services for. So
that's really nice. Oh, yeah.
So then that's the scoop is this. I thought this was great. Back to our ordinary content, but we wanted to show you this one because it was a visual, because without seeing it, it's not quite the same.
There's something for everybody. And if you're in the market for new clothes, designer, divorce clothes, maybe you can have your girlfriends wear the dump him sweatshirt at your court appearance,
So speaking of Angelina Jolie, Laura Wasser was her divorce lawyer. Rahul, tell us, we're transitioning smoothly because we're divorce professionals, people.
Brother,
no, that's actually the wrong one. I didn't mind to push that. I meant to push the horn. We got Angelina Jolie divorce news. All right.
So this is an article out of Yahoo Entertainment that's quoting In Touch magazine that basically says Angelina Jolie has reportedly not dated anyone since divorce from Brad Pitt. Yeah, famously, very, very contentious divorce. They finalized their split December of 2024, so a year and a couple months now. The article says she's been extremely busy and focused the last few years, and she's focusing as being a single mom, and that's where her focus is. It kind of goes into a little bit about how messy their divorce was, though. So she said back when they filed for divorce way back in 2016, we heard about a lot of issues we've talked about in the show previously, and custody about their 6 kids, Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, and their twins, Knox and Vivian, who are now 17. The youngest are 17 now, so they're just friends. They saw her out at dinner with Louis Garrel, who was also in the film business. And meanwhile, Pitt has moved on and is dating Inez de Ramon, who is a jewelry designer.
Also 33 years old, by the by. He's 62. Good work, Brad.
Good for him. So that's what's going on in the Pitt-Jolie household.
They used to say May-December romance was one, in my day when I was a young man. Now it is a age gap relationship is what they call it, folks. Okay, folks, we got to show you something I just discovered here. We're gonna go with the screen share again.
That's the theme of this episode.
Yeah, we're gonna get high tech for you. This is why you want to watch on YouTube. Oh, now right below the story that says she's not dated anyone, March 3rd, 3:50 in the afternoon, Tuesday. This is fresh news. We scroll down. Is Angelina Jolie dating her French co-star, who's 8 years her junior? Pray tell.
Pray tell. The previous one said they were they were just friends, but I don't know.
Just
is
a
there
friend.
Some fly in the ointment here? So
fly in the ointment. What is happening? And these published like right around the same time. He's a handsome devil. And he looked, well, there you go. So we don't know, folks. We're just reporting it. We don't know. We don't have special intel, but we're just here to educate and entertain. So that's the scoop. All right. Rahul, let's move on to some listener questions. I'll intro this one. So remember, folks, we like to talk about the zeitgeist.
That's another word for the day.
Thank you. We're expanding your vocabulary. My grandfather, my long past grandfather, would love the fact that I'm using the big words today. So, okay, Papa, I'm glad you like this show. I hope you enjoy it. So we're going with the cultural zeitgeist here. And you've probably heard of the term tradwife. Or if you're not terminally on the internet like Rahul and I are.
Yeah, right.
Like Rahul, describe the Tradwife movement, if you will, please.
The Tradwife movement can best be described as someone who wants to stay home, spin their own yarn to make their own clothes, grind their own flour, and make their own, raise chickens and get their own eggs to then have. It's going back to a very traditional lifestyle, which is where the word tradwife comes from. Trad is for traditional.
So you're exaggerating a little bit for comedic effect, and it's landing. We're basically talking about the stay-at-home mom deal, right? And raise the kids and cook food and that stuff. In the 50s style of the apron-wearing wife from the sitcom, right?
That's exactly right. So it's basically a subculture that's made up of predominantly women who promote what they call traditional gender roles. And it's often on social media. You can see a lot of influencers who are going to be engaging in such roles. And, of course, the reason I exaggerated it was because that's typically the most common version of things. And it's,
Well, and the content gets clicks.
Exactly. And then the husband is the sole breadwinner. They don't have a job outside the house, and they are kind of focusing on homemaking, nurturing kids, etc.
So we're not here to judge that lifestyle. What we thought was interesting was a woman wrote a story on Huffington, they've got their website here, and they do a lot of divorce content. Interestingly enough, I've been published on Huffington Post a few times. Little self-plug there. So in any event, the person basically says, I'll summarize this, Rahul, and then I got some questions to kind of bounce off of you. So the story basically says, they talk about how this is a big trend on social media. That people got one person has 7 million followers sharing cooking and homemaking videos from her Utah farmhouse. It's called Hannah Nealman. Ballerina Farm is her page. And on TikTok, it's huge, I guess. And then another person has 1.3 million likes across her videos, touting the benefits of relying on someone to take care of you and all that stuff. So we're not judging that. And stay-at-home moms, there's a lot of benefits. And however, we are divorce lawyers. And I tell people that I was a born optimist and a trained skeptic. Or a trained pessimist. And so a realist maybe is the word I should use. And Rahul, I think, is we're very similar kind of guys about this. We're live and let live people. And then it's like, yeah, but you should know this because divorce does happen sometimes. So they say the Tradwife, this woman writes a story and basically says, I was married, throughout my first marriage, I'll do a quick quote. My husband and I muddled through 3 young children, making the best life we could. We eventually divorced. I became a single mom and a bit more muddling ensued. I was always one step behind, stressed out, overworked, and underemployed. And she talks about the challenges of owning a home and paying the bills and all that stuff, even though support was being paid. So Rahul, I guess this raises a number of questions. The first one that comes to mind is, what are the pitfalls of the Tradwife lifestyle? A lot of ladies are career women now. They come out of college with a degree or get a master's, law degree, whatever, and they build a nice career into their 30s. And a lot of folks get married. As we know, we talk about stats that say people getting married now at 30. So they got enough time to get a career going, teaching, whatever it is. What about them stopping that and raising kids and stuff like that? What are your thoughts as a divorce lawyer?
Well, I think the biggest concern with that lifestyle is you increase your exposure towards financial risk. You lose control over the family money. You become very dependent on someone else. Whether you're okay with that or not is your own personal opinion. But from a legal perspective, one individual is able to control the entire family finances. That one individual is the source for the finances, and that individual can do anything from decide how much money to deposit into a certain account you can access every month, to secreting funds elsewhere that you'll have to try and discover, to the point of, if there is a divorce in the future, you have something like alimony or spousal maintenance, for example, that can now be limited based on state law. And so depending on the state in which you are, there could be formulas or theories for how much of maintenance, for how long it should be paid, etc. So if you were to sacrifice your career to stay at home, you're really jeopardizing your financial future, because you might get maintenance based on your mileage there for a certain period of time and child support. That may or may not be enough for you, and that may or may not go on for the time period that you think it should, at which point you will find yourself in a position where you are struggling to make ends meet. It also creates weird dynamics for power inside the relationship based on finance, dependency issues. It's like, some people say it's learned helplessness. So you don't have a safety net, and job market at one time can be better than another time. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not a good idea. I don't want to say it's not a good idea. I just think there's a lot of points that are, can have a lot of exposure for risk. Let me put it that way.
The thing is, you could say, well, I'm going to make this marriage great. I'm going to bulletproof this and we're not going to get divorced. Well, I hope that's the case. I like marriage so much, I've done it twice. So I'm a big fan of I was married 24 years the first time, and I've been married several years this time. And I intend this to be my second and last marriage. So I'm a big fan of it, and it can work wonderfully well. My parents are still married after 58 years, bless them. So it works. It can work really well. But you can only control your side of the street. And so you can say, well, I'm going to make this the best marriage it can be. I'm going to take care of my spouse's needs and all that, and they'll want to stay married to me. Well, that may be true, but then something happens you don't bargain for and you don't have control over, and then it goes sideways. So there is a risk involved, and trusting the state law in your state, or in our case in Illinois, to protect you, well, it's not wonderful. I'll frame it in a really basic way. This is some way I explain it to a lot of men who are kind of asking what the support's going to be like, and they're worried that they're going to be broke and run out of money and stuff, or it's going to cost a lot. And I say, well, think about it this way. So your wife had access to all of your money during the marriage and charged credit card expenses, and you guys paid for everything, and that was fine. She's now going to have access to maybe 30 or 40% of your money now. She'll get half of the assets, but then going forward, the income's only going to be somewhere between maybe 30 and 45% of income. So your lifestyle is going to change whether you like it or not, if you're on the receiving end of that. So that's the risk Rahul's talking about. And the other thing is the woman talks about owning a house. Like she says, I won the house in the divorce case. Then mentions there's all this maintenance. The husband's no longer around to work on the house. There's tons of work to be done. There's a lot of expenses related to the home. And it becomes a thing where it's not just the mortgage, it's all the other stuff that comes with it. And the roof has a hole in it, or the AC unit dies, and it's a $18,000 expense to replace the HVAC unit. So there's all these things that create exposure and risk. So it's not knocking this lifestyle. It's just kind of like be wary about the potential downside. I'll give one case story. I represented a woman in her 40s who was getting divorced, and she'd been out of the workforce for, 10 plus years and had like 3 young kids. And she had been a public school teacher with a nice job, and she quit it to take care of the kids. She was just telling me, man, I never should have quit that job. It was not hard. It wasn't terribly difficult. I had the summers off. I had health insurance. And I got a raise every year and a pension. And the problem, what she was facing was, you can't just go back and be a new teacher again in the public school system. The union rules don't allow it. So you can't say, well, now that I've done 8 or 10 years of teaching or whatever it was, I want to just go back and I'll take any job at the school and start at zero. It doesn't work like that. So she's effectively frozen out of her career. She can't just jump back into it. So these are the very real considerations with real costs. So we're not judging that lifestyle. It has a lot of merit. And maybe it's something where you want to build some protections into a prenup or a postnuptial agreement or something. And you say, look, if I'm going to engage in this lifestyle with you, I'm willing to try it, but I need some assurances. And I'm not trusting Illinois law to protect me 100%. Maybe there needs to be a further negotiation if you're giving up your career.
You should have an honest conversation about that, about expectations, and then have a prenup.
Or a postnup if you're already married. But the one thing that, people, now that you're getting married older, you've got a chance to have those conversations. Young people don't know better. I got married at 21, not even thinking about any of that. And nobody tells you to. And people are older now, and they have a career, and they own some property, and they should go in with eyes open and have these conversations. What are your values? What are your expectations? All right, that's a good one. I like that. So,
all right. So let me ask you this one. So this is a listener question, or I guess more of a comment really, is I want a very strong, aggressive lawyer who knows all about narcissists, emotional abuse, financial abuse, and borderline personality disorder to fight my husband in our divorce case. It isn't filed yet. So what do you say to that, Rafe?
Yeah, so we get this periodically. This was a question from the Illinois Divorce Support Network, our private Facebook group, 1,600 members and growing. Free to join, anonymous to post, by the way. My response to this was, and I said this in the group, in divorce in Illinois, and this is really true anywhere in the United States, these issues, while they're the why of the divorce, they aren't the what of the divorce. And the what is the stuff the court deals with: assets, income, debt, and the kids. Maybe that's the who of the divorce. So the what and the who is what the court deals with. The why is absolutely irrelevant. We have no fault divorce in Illinois. So while it's important to you, understandably so, and you're upset about it, the fact that the person's a narcissist, borderline personality, whatever, and we've talked about this before, one of the most over amateur diagnosed things in the world is narcissist BPD. It's prevalent in about under 2% of males in the United States. Let's assume it's even true, or that they're narcissistic behaviors. Let's say that. Let's accept it as true. And I didn't challenge this person on the whether it's true or not part. I just said, just understand the court doesn't care. It's not relevant. What's relevant is what are the assets, what are the liabilities, what's the income and expenses, and tell us about the kids. Oh, and also she mentioned like emotional abuse and financial abuse. Well, the financial abuse is only relevant in that if the guy's hiding money or wasted money, that's a legal issue we can get our hands around. That's one thing. But the abuse part, the sort of emotional injury part, has no value in the divorce case itself. It doesn't get you any mileage. So you don't get to talk about sort of the bad acts of the person in your testimony at trial, for example. Well, he treated me badly, controlled the money, did this or that or the other thing. It's just not relevant.
Right. There's actually a line in the law that says, the court shall divide or allocate the marital estate. So whatever the exact language is in Illinois law, there's a part of without regard to word marital misconduct. So, I mean, there it is right there.
It's literally ruled out. And the rationale behind all of that was to take the steam out of divorce cases. It was to make them less expensive, less contentious, because people complained. They said, we're fighting over all this stuff that doesn't have to do with the actual divorce. It's just us shooting bullets at each other. And it was ugly as all get out and made cases much more messy than they needed to be. And so people pushed their legislators to change the law, and the law was changed. So we have no fault divorce. So unfortunately for this person, it's not an issue. And a lawyer knowing about BPD and narcissism, which, by the way, we all kind of know it's out there. We understand it. It's kind of par for the course in this business. There's no magic lawyer that has a special grip on narcissist BPD, and that's going to give them the magic unlock for the divorce case. It just doesn't go like that.
Nor do you usually do something differently because of it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm not going to change my approach because this person is this or that,
Right. And Bill Eddy, who spoke, I know Bill personally, Bill, who wrote the book Splitting 20 plus years ago, which was really the first book about divorcing a narcissist. And if you think you're divorcing a narcissist, I recommend you read it. Splitting is excellent. It's not a long book, but basically what Bill tells you is you're in for a rough ride. A real narcissist is going to put you through World War III, and they only settle when their back's against the wall. Okay, well, once you know that as a lawyer and a party in a divorce case, that's all you need to know is we're going to fight. Okay, standard negotiating is going to be probably a waste of time. That's pretty much the long and short of it. The other thing is the client will always say, and Rahul, I'm sure you've heard this, everybody thinks he's wonderful. Everybody's very persuasive and everybody loves him. But, deep down, he's actually a bad guy and that's a classic narcissist situation. And what the client is kind of telling you is they're worried that you're going to be swayed by their BS. And you've probably seen this, right, Rahul, where you're like, look, I assure you, I take what they say with a grain of salt. They're on the other side of this case. I'm not just going to believe them because they're smiling at me. So basically, there's no magical special lawyer that knows about BPD and narcissism, and that's going to be the magic thing. And we all get it.
They're not going to charm you from doing your job for which you have been hired by someone to do.
Yeah, we're on your side. We're not going to, the guy was so charming. I believe everything he says.
You know what? Maybe you're the problem, client. Maybe we're not going to say that. I mean, we would probably even think it because we've seen both sides of the coin hundreds of times. So
I thought it was worth addressing this because this is something that Rahul's heard about before. We get periodically in consultations where somebody will say, he's a narcissist and we're not making fun of it. We're not making light of it. It's the behaviors are real. It can be a big mess. The true narcissism is real, but much more limited than people kind of think. It's very popular in social media and in books right now. It's how to divorce a narcissist, dealing with a narcissist. And they are real. There are high conflict personalities. They exist, or they turn into high conflict people during a divorce. But we wanted to kind of give some perspective. So, okay, I've got a question for you, Rahul. This is a good one for our folks. Let's say our support payors out there, the people paying support. This is a pretty common question. Okay, in this case, this person says, I'm going to be losing. And the interesting thing is this is a question from somebody who's receiving support, but it's interesting for people paying support to understand.
As well, yep. So it's good on both sides.
Right. That's why we wanted to tell you guys about this. This is another Divorce Support Network one. I'm going to lose my job come end of December due to my employer closing permanently. I've tried applying for new jobs, but no hits as of yet. My question is, if I can't find a job by the end of the year, am I able to take my ex back to court to have child support increased? How would insurance costs be split if they're on my insurance, meaning the kids, and I won't have it when I lose my job? Also, we have kids in club sports, which are expensive. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford it based on unemployment income. Can I ask the court to have him, ex-husband, pay for my portion of their sports? I've never been in this situation, so any guidance is appreciated.
So the question is, as on the inverse of this question is, as the payor, do I have to worry if my ex-partner, ex-spouse, whatever the relationship was, co-parent, loses their job and can go in and ask for more child support or ask for me to contribute a larger percentage of my income towards expenses or what have you? And so, as is the case with many, many issues in the legal world, the answer is really, it depends, right? So unfortunately, yeah, you can, depending on, again, as the payor, you would argue that this should not give rise to a modification because your spouse, I'm just going to say your ex-spouse just to keep it simple. Your ex-spouse, you'll say, should be able to go get a new job. And what'll end up happening is you'll argue that the court should either impute income to this person. This person should keep a job diary to demonstrate their ability to get a job. I know they're saying that the employer is closing permanently. So what field of work were you in? Can you find something comparable? So on and so forth. Or is this sort of a situation that works really well? So you're like, hey, I really don't want to keep working and my employer is closing. So this works out great. I can take my sweet time looking for a job. And so that's going to be a very fact-specific discussion and argument with the court about whether or not this person should be imputed income. Imputation is essentially, as we've talked about in prior episodes, when the court assigns a certain dollar amount to someone after a hearing because, they are under or unemployed. Now, that will then affect whether any percentage changes or not. The law does allow, as a general statement, the law says child support will be modified based on a substantial change in circumstances. So that modification can go up or down. That's the law. So the question becomes if it should be modified or not.
So I have a question on a couple questions on that. One is, can you discuss because this is relevant and it can be modified, can you discuss the magnitude of a modification based on even a fairly substantial change in dollars? Let's say somebody went from 50, let's say 75 down to unemployment of, I don't know what it is, 25 grand. I don't know if it's minimum wage or what, 30, but they go from like 75 to 30. And that's the first question. The other one, we want to address this club sports thing. So start with how much more money could someone actually expect to get? Is it a lot? Is it not a lot?
This really hinges on how much parenting time parties have. Illinois, we can only speak to Illinois, as we always say. This is for Illinois law specific. Your mileage may vary in your jurisdiction. In Illinois, and this is from the Illinois Support Network, so we presume this person is in Illinois. But for people listening elsewhere, right? So child support is based on three big factors: your income, the other party's income, and the amount of overnights that the parties have with the children. Unequivocally, the biggest, most important factor that moves the needle is the overnights. How much parenting time does a person have with the child? Is it 146 or less? I'm sorry, is it under 146 or is it 146 and more? That is the biggest factor. So income changes by thousands of dollars have a minimal effect on child support when compared to the parenting time.
So that's the thing we wanted to kind of get at. And maybe I was a little vague about the question. Let's assume parenting time stays the same, Rahul. So we're not dealing with that particular, but you're right. That is if it goes over 146 overnights, child support for the income ranges we normally deal with is cut like in half, But what I'm getting at is in the old days, and you and I were both working in the old days of child support, I'm pretty sure, when it was directly proportional to income.
20 for one kid, 28 for two kids, 32 for three kids, 40 for four kids, right? Percent
of net income. And as every dollar was added, you got another 20% of that additional dollar. So I guess what I'm getting at is, I'd like you to talk a little about what is the increment now, relatively speaking, if let's say the person drops 30 grand, or the flip side is the husband, the payor, increases his income 30 grand. Is it a dramatic change in child support?
It probably will not be a dramatic change in child support, just because it's not a percentage. So think of it as three like levers or gears that are turning. One is bigger than the other, etc. So the proportional increase or decrease will not be as significant as it used to be in the past. And in the past, the recipient's income had no bearing on it. So it wouldn't have affected it anyway. And now it would probably affect it minimally because of the amount of child support they probably were receiving compared to the income of the payor.
Yeah, and one thing that the way I've described it is the increase used to be arithmetic, meaning it just every dollar added another 20% or 28%. And now it's logarithmic for you math fans, meaning as the curve goes up, initially the increase is fairly steep. So in lower incomes, every additional dollar, a large chunk of it goes to child support. The way they designed it, they sort of pushed it to the low end. But once you get up to, I don't know what the income, 40, 50 grand, whatever it is a year, it starts to curve so that each incremental dollar has very little change in child support at the higher end, to the point where it's like very nominal. A change between 200 and 220 in income, for example, makes very little, moves the needle very, very little.
Right. And so for the payors, you don't have to worry too much about it. And this is even true if you have, the closer you have to a 50-50 schedule, it it's a rounding error sometimes. And for the payee, the recipient who actually posed the question, sure, you can take your ex back to court, yes, to have child support increased, maybe by a few dollars, but again, you'll have to prove that the increase would be substantial or that there's been a substantial change that'll warrant, a substantial increase or decrease in child support. And so
you would have to run the math to see if it's even worth your while.
Exactly. Yep. The cost you're going to pay an attorney to go back.
Right. And now the sports thing, and this is where you start negotiating. This is where you pick up the phone and talk to your ex and say, hey, can you help me out here? Because I don't want to run to court on this thing. We both spend a bunch of money on fees. By the way, for something that may be a temporary problem. I mean, hopefully if this person gets a job, this is a 6-month problem. And Rahul, the last thing we've got to mention quickly, that sports contribution, let's assume in most of our cases, wouldn't you say the division of that? So by the way, the division of those expenses goes along the division of incomes after payment and receipt of support. That's how the judges do it. So they say, if one guy makes 60 grand, the wife is making 40 after support is paid. It's a 60-40 split of those expenses. I would say, Rahul, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're doing a lot more of this, especially lately. Most of these cases tend to fall around 60-40, don't they?
Yeah, it's either 50-50 or 60-40. You never see anything different than that. Radically change. No, it's going to be rare to find 75-25, 70-30. I mean, you do find certain circumstances where that's the case, but that's the exception, not the rule. So you have a 75-25 where a person's making $1 million a year and the spouse is making 200 grand. So, I mean, but not really common. The 60-40 and 50-50 is the most common.
Yeah, it tends to wash out there. So what we get with what we just said, Rahul, about how your support number is not going to bump a lot. It's not going to bump your split a lot.
No. And your income going to zero, I mean, you're getting unemployment. It's one of those where what is 10% of an out-of-pocket cost or 20%, right? If it's $100, we're talking about an extra 10 or 20 bucks. You don't really want to go to court for an extra 10 or $20 towards an activity. This doesn't make any sense.
You're going to spend $300 to $500 plus an hour on attorney's fees, no matter where you go in Illinois. And it's going to, I always tell people, imagine, anything. Any court action is $5,000, just like for starters.
Just think about it that way.
Heck, immediately, you're at least going to spend $5,000 on a post-decree petition at a minimum. So then you have a price tag to hang on and say, okay, is it worth my while? Well, it's probably better just call your ex up and say, can you shoot me some bucks?
It's like you're saying, so do I want to spend $5,000 up front right now to reduce this obligation by a couple bucks every month? Or increase it by a couple of bucks every month? Or do I just keep the $5,000 and it evens out to what it was and I'm not jeopardizing any of these things?
And boy, does this tie into the Tradwife thing. This just shows you how, hey, this person loses their job. It's a major problem. We're not saying that this person's not in a tough situation, but even if she gets a win in court, she's got to pay her own attorney's fees. And now she's bumped up the numbers only slightly. So it shows kind of the downside.
All right, Rafe, on to you now. So another question from our readers in our Facebook group. Can I file a rule to show cause against my soon-to-be ex for custody/visitation interference if all we have is a verbal agreement between us, our attorneys, and the judge, or does it have to be in writing?
So short answer, it's got to be in writing. A rule to show cause is only for violating a court order. And obviously a court order is a written order of the judge. And a rule to show cause is a device we use in Illinois. The rule is, the show cause part is you're asking the other party to show cause, show a reason why they should not be held in contempt of court. So violating a court order is contempt of court. So our device in Illinois is to say, show the court why you shouldn't be held in contempt. That is a rule to show cause. So you bring the petition, the burden shifts to them. They have to show why the judge shouldn't hold them in contempt. If there's no written court order, there's no contempt. So there's no rule to show cause. So I don't exactly know. One of the issues here was, what are the facts? When the judge agreed with them verbally, I'm guessing there was some pretrial byplay, some discussion, and said, behave yourselves and do X and Y. And they said, okay, and that's it. Well, if something isn't in writing, it's kind of a nothing burger. So you've got to get things, especially about kids, need to be in court orders. And when you get an agreement from somebody, make sure it gets memorialized in a court order. It's because otherwise, even a written agreement between the two of you about children is a nothing unless the court approves it, because the court has to approve custody and visitation, because that's within the sole province of the court, because the court is the one to determine if it's in the best interest of the children. So any little side deal you guys make is a nothing.
And, this is not to say now, if there was absolutely no basis for this alleged interference, that soon-to-be ex of yours is the credibility goes down. They're going to be held in worse light. A court's probably going to take them, what they say, with a grain of salt in the future. There's the meta case that goes with that we talk about. But in the instant question, just this honing in on the scope of this question, no, it's not contempt.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Last, Rahul, let's talk about moving to our sort of educational relationship stuff. We got Bruce Lee back. Bruce is back. The great Dr. Bruce Lee, not to be confused with the great martial artist Bruce Lee. Dr. Bruce Lee is very much alive. He's an MD and MBA. He's a double threat. We asked him to come on the show. No answer. I guess we're not good enough yet. We're not at the Rogan level. So he says, the new dating trend is the 6'7" dating trend. Now, if you haven't been driven insane yet by kids talking about 6'7" and you wondering what the heck it's about, well, Bruce Lee will not let you down, and Dr. Lee's on the trend. There's a dating trend, clearly different from the 6'7" trend that's been going on earlier this year. Rahul, tell us what it means.
So basically, this is not some childish kind of thing that you see on TikTok where they kind of go 6'7" with their hands and they're running around. Instead, what Dr. Bruce Lee is saying is that you should pursue someone who rates a 6 or 7 in hotness and excitement rather than a 10. This trend, he talks about how the article says in its key point section, it emphasizes the importance of reliability and emotional availability, but oversimplifies people. Instead of foregoing 10s, consider redefining in different ways a person might qualify as a 10 for you, besides just, visually or aesthetically. And he also said, it's kind of funny, is like, you may not like it if your significant other is following this trend.
Dun, dun, dun. So, yeah, exactly. So let me, to quote Doug Palmer, my father, I was in high school, and the first dating advice he gave me was, be fearless, and just basically said, ask girls out. You're never going to go on a date if you don't ask people out. Well, I follow instructions. So I go around and I'm asking all the hottest girls in the high school. And, I'm a freshman and I'm asking juniors who are like cheerleaders and stuff. And nerdy me is not getting any traction. So I go back and I report back to my father and said, hey, this advice is not real good. Nobody's saying yes. What you told me, aim, you said, go ask people, and I'm shooting blanks here. And he says, I'm paraphrasing. I don't think I was as cool then as I am now, or eloquent. And he says, hey, aim your sights a little low. First, he asked me what's going on. So I said, well, I'm asking this cheerleader and this girl who's running on the dance team and all these things. And he starts chuckling. He was a varsity football player in high school and very popular with the ladies, or so he says, but I think it's true. Anyway, he says, hey, Rafe, you got to aim your sights a little lower. You can't just be asking out the junior prom queen and stuff like that. He says, how about asking a girl that's like one of your classes That's like, a nice girl that might be from down the street or whatever. And I said, and then I asked a girl out who was in my Latin class to go to homecoming, and she said yes. And it worked. So what Dr. Lee is saying is what my dad said, which is set your sights a little lower. We all look at these on these dating apps, of course, too. We have this false illusion of choice that there's all these hotties out there just waiting for us, these 10s or whatever, when really they're really out of your league maybe, and maybe you'd be happier with somebody who's a little more your speed. And that's what Dr. Lee's talking about. The 6-7, the lower scoring person is more stable, dependable, appreciative, and emotionally available. There you go. I like this line. It's basically akin to favoring the more reliable car, outfit, or whatever, rather than the high-end luxury item.
That might get oohs and ahs from other people, but at the same time bring some oohs and ahs to you in a different bad way.
Yeah, those Ferraris are expensive to fix, expensive to insure, right? You go with the cheaper, get the Honda Accord. It'll get you there. It'll get you there. So that's what we're saying. So, do you remember the song "Make an Ugly Woman Your Wife"? You remember that? Like, you want to be happy for the rest of your life, make an ugly woman your wife. Remember that? I don't know.
I do remember that. Yeah, yes, I do.
Dr. Lee agrees.
He agrees. He says, when what he closes with, it's pretty nice, right? So he says, the trouble with many of these dating trends is that they oversimplify dating. He says, they suggest there's some kind of formula to follow. He's like, ultimately, he says, instead of going lower, consider the following, and he says 6 or 7 ways of redefining what is meant by a 10. Very clever. So go ahead, take a look at the article. It's a chuckle for you.
So Rahul, tell us how people can, that's it for the show. Tell people how folks can find you online.
You can find me at Chicago Divorce on Instagram and on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And you can always find me at Rayford Palmer on all the socials, and look for STG Divorce Law on social media. We also have a Facebook group, I Just Want This Done Divorce or support group, and for Illinois, and the I Just Want This Done book on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and where all great ebooks are sold for you Nook fans, Apple Books, I got you. And Audible, if you like listening to my mellifluous voice for 8 hours, I got you. And we hope you have a great week. Thanks a lot for listening. Like, share, subscribe. Please review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you got your pods so people know that you like the content. And please like, share, subscribe on YouTube so we know we're doing the right thing. We can bring you more of what you want to hear about. Comments really help. We get very few of them. We really want the comments because then we know if we're doing the right thing. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.